All right, well, good morning, guys. Today we have Kyle Robinson and Sharif Hatab. Kyle went from 707 transactions to investing in multiple businesses, flipping two homes a month. And today he's going to talk to us about how to go from just getting a commission check to using that money to invest in house flipping or rental properties or even in other aspects of the business. So welcome, Kyle, to today's episode. How you been?
Good, Peter. Thanks for having me on, man. I'm really looking forward to this, and things are good, man. I got an 8-month-old baby, and I'm telling you what, things are moving quick. So
It feels like you just had the baby yesterday, for
I
sure, though.
know, I know. I had the baby, and then I grew this crappy beard that I'm trying to sport right now.
Is this
I
the
tell everyone
beard
I lost
debut?
the bet. I really didn't. I'm just trying to see if it will work after 38 years of life. It's a
Wait, is
little
this
rough.
the beard debut, Kyle? Is this the
Yes,
beard
it is.
debut?
It's a little awkward stage. So if you're out there watching this, don't judge me. 6 months from now, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be.
It's all about the investment. It's
That's
about
right.
putting in the
That's right.
consistent time. So you definitely got it. It's on your
Right,
face.
man. That's right. I'm in it to win it. That's a minute to win it. So
I love it. So, Kyle, I guess tell us a little bit about your backstory, how you started in this business, and where you're at today.
yeah, man. So I went to the University of Iowa, graduated with a finance degree in 2009, then moved to Northern California to pursue. We owned a hat company. We had a patent on a ski cap. Moved out to the Sierra Nevada mountains for 4.5 years, and then I ran back into my beautiful wife that I went to high school with. She was a grade below me. Decided to move back to the Midwest, and one of those things I was wondering when I came back, I was like, what am I going to do? So I was kind of looking for that gap job, and I had a guy that originally got me my first house in California. His name was Tom Gagne. He was super, super cool. I worked for Coldwell Banker, but he got to wear flip flops, cargo shorts, and a Hawaiian t-shirt every day. And I'm like, man, that's what I want to do. Right. So I was like, you know what? Took the leap, started taking real estate classes in 2013. Got into the business in October of 2013, and the rest is kind of history, man. It's one of those things that allowed me flexibility and freedom. I've always been a serial entrepreneur at heart. I've owned several different businesses, a lot of ones in which I shouldn't have owned, but it's one of those things you learn in life, right? And I think a lot of times it's the things that you do that actually shape the way that you are. So it's really allowed me to get a better understanding of where I want to spend my time and who I want to spend my time with. So retail real estate kind of spiraled into a whole bunch of different businesses, right? So I was a independent agent up until about 2018, and at that point, let's talk about it, right? Real estate can be really overwhelming, and at that point, I was doing a lot of deals. My last year as an individual agent, I had some part-time help. I did 162 deals. I was overwhelmed, man. I was one of those things that my relationship with work was great, but my relationship with my family was awful. So I actually filed for divorce in 2018. One of those things that is not something you want to talk about, but I think people on this podcast need to hear that life isn't always roses, and sometimes you have to realize that when the problems come, you got to look them face dead in the face and say, "What do I got to do to get through this?" So, luckily, after about 10 months of separation, I rekindled with my wife and moved back. And at that point, we realized we had to do life differently. So then at that point, that's when I started a real estate team, and I started to leverage other people and the opportunities that I had to help other people succeed, right? It was a complete switch of my mindset. Don't get me wrong. I've always been a big proponent of helping other people get what they want, but it was really a big shift. Like, I think a lot of times when you're having success as a real estate agent, you don't really necessarily talk to people about the things that you're doing to have that success, right? You kind of keep that close chested because you don't want other people to find out about it. But once I found out that I could tell other people about it and that it wouldn't take away from my success, that's when I truly started to get satisfaction in this business. And I was able to help many other people, primarily a lot of new people that have never been in the industry, get into the industry and succeed at a very, very high level. We built the fastest growing real estate agent in Iowa twice. I'm very proud of that. I've had an agent do over 90 deals in his first year. Those are huge numbers, right? And really, in all reality, it has to do with the right recipe, right? Making sure you get around the right people, make sure you have the right advice, and make sure you get plenty of opportunity. So, that's kind of what we've been rocking. We got a real estate team here in Iowa. We're in 5 different markets from the Quad Cities to Iowa City, Iowa, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa, And then we're also in the west suburbs of Chicago. So things have really started to blossom. And, it's one of those things that my biggest impact now is how many people can I impact in their lives and help them create the financial freedom that they're seeking in life. And that's what it is. It's financial freedom, time freedom, place freedom is what we're really looking for, right? And I think a lot of times people don't understand what the true prize is. It's not about going out and selling another home. It's about taking that money and investing into something that's going to pay us long term, right? And that's really what I want. My passion in real estate is to make agents aware that real estate commission checks aren't everything, right? I don't want you to be in real estate for 30 or 40 years. I want you to be in it for 10, 20 years, take that hard-earned income, invest in it into other things, so that way you're not out on nights and weekends for the rest of your life.
So basically, Kyle, you're saying people have to think about investing in themselves as well. Don't spend your paycheck as soon as you get it, and try to figure out ways to leverage it. And how could you advise someone just starting out? What could they do to do that?
Yeah, I think the one thing is get a mentor or coach, right? I recommend when you're first getting into the business to join a real estate team, right? I think it's going to take years off the learning curve. I would typically tell people on my real estate team and people as they transition out, they will always come back and say, man, the information that I got on that team really expedited my real estate career. A lot of times we say it takes in 1 year, you can learn what it would take you 5 years to learn, right? And it's just about being around the daily huddles, about being around the people, talking the talk, and getting a better understanding of how things work and really shortening that learning curve. And that's what we've done. And that's what we consistently keep doing.
Yeah. No, we tell everybody too on our team that way, the same thing. I mean, if you think about it, first of all, 100% of zero transactions is still zero. And the other part is like, how much money have you invested in real estate coaching or coaching in general for you to pretty much pour back in your team and all the resources and all the leads that are being invested? Like if anybody does the math, and now that I know how much I'm investing myself into the team and the coaching and everything else, like, if I ever move to a different location, that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to go and join a team because I know how much it takes to invest. And a lot of times the team members are making more money than the actual team leader from all the investments that the team leader is doing.
100%. And don't get me wrong, I'm nothing against the broker, but let's just face it. Most brokers, unless you really are somebody that's a shining star, they're not necessarily putting a ton of energy and effort to you because a lot of them aren't necessarily getting paid a ton of money. And really, in all reality, it's based off a company dollar, right? So once a company dollar is paid in, they really have very little incentive to continue to help you at that point. And I'm not saying that negatively. I know some people will take that as like, oh my God, Kyle's talking crap about brokerages. He's only pro team. That's not true. I've had great managing brokers and I've had really bad managing brokers or managing brokers that were very discouraging. I'll put this out there. Maybe they'll listen to this at some point. I had a managing broker my final year. This is back, and our average sales price was dog crap, right? And I told her, I said, that year I wanted to do 25 million in transactions. And she looked at me and she goes, you're not going to do that. And I said, what? I said, and you know what? I did $26.8 million that year. And then I left right afterwards, right? So, it's one of those things. Don't be discouraging. I will never tell somebody that they can't do something. I would say, hey, you know what? That's great. Why don't we look at what commitments we're going to have to be able to accomplish to get that goal? Not, you're not going to do that. Like, to be honest with you, those are the people that push me even harder in life. I once had an accountant I went and sat down with, and I told her what my goals were. And I told her I wanted to incorporate into an S Corp. Right at that time, that's what a lot of people were doing rather than doing an LLC tax as an S Corp. They were actually setting up as an S Corp. And she looked at me and she goes, why would you do that? You're not going to make that much money. And I'm like, really? I said, okay, well, over the next 5 years, this is what my income goal is. She's like, no, I used to do a lot of real estate agents. I don't see anyone making that money. You know what's funny? Not only did I not hire her, but I hit that goal in 2.5 years rather than 5 years. Right. So it's one of those things that sometimes those naysayers, those people that are negative in your life, are actually the people that are going to push you to do it even more. Right. And that's kind of what I found, with some of the conversations that I've had with professionals is that don't let anybody ever put a cap on what you're going to accomplish, right? Only let their negativity drive you further. And that's kind of how I've been, right? So nobody's going to tell me what I can and cannot do, right? It's all indicative of the actions and the activity and the commitments that I set upon myself, right? Anything's possible as long as you work hard enough to do it. right?
So Kyle, how were you able to like cut that time in half? Like, what did you do? What was your strategy?
Well, it was one of those things that, and I'm not saying that you should do this. And I'm not saying I sold my soul to the devil, but at the end of the day, I worked my tail off, man. I was, it's one of those things that I would look at. And I think that the three of us can agree that agents that are typically high producers in their area typically really take their business seriously. And they're not working 4 hours a day. They're working 14 hours a day. Right. And it's okay. Sometimes this is what I tell the new agents. You have to work hard up front to be able to work less hard later, right? And I think that goes in any industry, right? You got to work your tail off right now. You're going to have to do things that you don't necessarily want to do. But I promise you that if you consistently do those things, you're eventually going to be able to be in a position where you don't have to do those things. So looking back on it, Sharif, I mean, I worked my tail off 80, 90-hour weeks, man, 80, 90-hour weeks. I was on the phone, worked, showed houses all day, came home, wrote offers, put people on home searches, sent the follow-up emails. I mean, I had a systematic process, but the problem is that I wasn't impacting the people that were in my life in a positive way. It was like, oh yeah, dad's home, but he's overworking all the time, right? And that's kind of what happened. And that's why we started the real estate team, because I realized that if I could leverage other people and help them succeed, I could succeed along the way, right? So I would never say don't work hard to begin with, but I think it's really about getting intentional about your time blocking and making sure that you're spending your time on the most productive things during that time block, right? And I would say that the key thing that I wish I would have done maybe a little bit sooner was hire a full-time administrative assistant, right? Because if I remember watching my business grow from 31 deals to double that just by hiring an assistant, I think a lot of times we get caught up on spending money, but when we spend money the right way, it actually allows us to make even more money, right? And I think that's one thing that a lot of people that are high producing real estate agents are afraid of putting that cost out. But really, in all reality, by them not putting that cost out, it's actually affecting their dollars that they're going to earn and probably their personal lives too. You're really the sum of the people you surround yourself around. So,
I mean, you hit the nail on the head there too. It's the fact that we're talking about spending money into your future, investing into other things, and that's the reality of it. It starts as small as even just investing into an ad. It's really investing to your future because you're able to leverage your time just to focus on those important things. So, I mean, what things have you done, Kyle, that like you've invested into that's taken, the pressure off of doing so much real estate?
yeah. So, I mean, let's just talk about the real estate business as a whole, right? Let's face it, our real estate teams, our businesses, right? We need to take them seriously and we need to look at what are the moving needles in our business, right? So, as I started to build my real estate team out, I realized I needed much more than just an administrative assistant. One of the first hires that I actually made after my administrative assistant, and this usually goes against a lot of other people's theory, is I hired a director of operations that was intentful to become my chief operating officer, right? So back when we made the move from that previous brokerage, just started the team in 2018. I made my first admin hire in 2015, 2016. But when I hired that COO, I did it with the vision that I knew that I wanted to focus on other things, right? And I knew that it was going to be an expensive six-figure position if things all went the way they were supposed to, which obviously that's the goal. But at that point, I knew that my time was better spent helping other people build their businesses than focusing on going out and meeting buyers and sellers. So we started our listing department because I knew the next thing that I needed to do to get me out of the business was get a full-time listing coordinator that was able to facilitate everything that I was doing after I met with the seller, right? So really have to identify where you're spending your time and figuring out who can help complement you so that way you can talk to more sellers or you can talk to more agents and sellers combined. And that's really where I was focused on. And as we started to do that and we started to do more and more deals, then I realized I was like, you know what? I need to get more parts of this deal. And I think that's what a lot of real estate agents fail to recognize, that there's over 40 different people that are paid on every real estate transaction, right? And I think that's, they're like, how is that? Well, if you're in an attorney state, attorney companies, title companies, photographers, home inspectors, WDI inspectors, sewer line inspectors, plumbers, it goes home warranty. It goes on and on and on and on. And looking at that, and you're like, man, how can I capture the income that are coming off these deals and put my people in a good position? Because let's just face it, just because you're getting money doesn't mean it's good money. But if you're getting money from companies because you're providing the best services to them at very competitive prices, then at that point, you should be looking at how can I get a portion of that income, right? So that's really we started to looking at things. So then we went into starting a mortgage company, an insurance company, a credit repair company. We have a construction company that mostly focuses on roofing and siding. We have a solar company. We have other aspects that are vertically integrated with the real estate transaction. On average, we get paid 10 to 14 times in every single deal. Right? Don't get me wrong. A lot of these checks are very small checks.
Yeah,
We
they're still
make
check.
where this isn't just money that's floating out of the air, but it's a variety of different co-marketing that we do with different vendors to help our ecosystem, right? And we all win together. That's the thing, right? I have a really good cast of characters is what I would say, right? I've got a good group of people that take care of our clients, and we make sure that we continue to keep reinvesting into marketing, right? And that's really what this is. I mean, let's just face it. My real estate team is not a real estate team. It's a marketing company, right? 100%. There's no doubt about it. Without marketing, we're nothing, right? And that's what we really focus on. And I tell people that, right? Hey, I'm not here as a real estate agent. I'm here as a guy that works for a marketing company that happens to sell real estate.
I say too.
It's the truth. It's the truth. I mean, let's just face it. What do most real estate agents do? They put a sign in the yard and they sit back and pray, right? They're not going out. They're not geofencing. They're not retargeting people. They're not looking in and reinvesting into the seller so that way they can make sure that their house is getting in the right living rooms, right? Those are the things that we need to focus on. And as we're getting money coming in from these real estate checks, we need to take portions of it, set it aside so that way we can be reinvesting back into our business, right? I hear agents all the time, they're like, I would never buy leads. Don't get me wrong. That's great. That's great. Hopefully your family's been in the business for years, because I'm going to tell you this. I know some of the biggest social butterflies in our area that have failed miserably because they thought they knew everybody. They knew everybody. So they didn't need any other marketing. They didn't need any leads. They didn't need a team. Yet they were out of the business within 2 years, right? Because this business is not easy. And this business is not one in which people are going to give you business just because they know you, right? To be honest with you, they might want to not do business because they know you.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what we see. So, as a real estate agent, do you get upset when somebody uses somebody else? If so, get off the couch and do something about it, right? Tell people what you do, right? There's a lot of people like, well, they know I'm a real estate agent. No, they don't. All you do, well, they don't.
Because you're not marketing.
Yeah.
Market yourself.
I mean, there's so many ways to do this business, but it's about consistency is the key, right? Whatever you do, just be consistent about it. I hear a lot of different people try different marketing strategies, and I'm like, how long did you do it for? Like 2 weeks. I didn't get anybody. Like, do you know what the cash to conversion cycle is? Do you know how long it takes on average from when you meet somebody that says they want to do something to them actually doing it? Because if you don't, you need to start to research that, right? That will make you feel better about the time you're spending where you're not getting anything to begin with, right? It's okay. It's because this is a business. You plan to be here in a year from now, right? Yeah, okay. Well, that's no problem. Just because they don't want to buy today it's not the end of the world, right? So,
I mean, going back to your point with those people that only want to work with their sphere, and I know a lot of coaching companies that coach on that, but I can't see that being any sort of consistency in a business. There's no control of how much lead flow you can get every single month if you're not investing in lead sources or bringing in, especially if you have a team. Like, there's no way you can predict that you're going to end up closing X amount of transactions every month if you're not having X amount of leads coming in every single month, and you have control of that by investing in these lead sources, right? And it's not just buying leads, it's making sure that you have the systems in place to call them. Like you said, a department that maybe calls those leads, automations that call these leads, like what happens when the lead comes in, what happens after the transaction comes in, so they have great service so they can refer you to other clients. Because I'm sure when you did the 707 transactions, you probably had a good percentage of them that were past clients that came back because you did such a great service. Your team did such an amazing service that they wanted to use you or refer you to other people, right?
Yeah, we do have a very high level of sphere and return business and referral business. And that's truly indicative of the value that they're providing to these people. We don't just walk into a house and say, look at the great carpet, look at the great paint. We point things out. We make sure that our clients, our agents know how to show a house, know how to properly read a serial number off of a HVAC equipment, or open a window to be able to identify how old they are if there's a tag in the top. We make sure we go a step above, so that way when they remember that next time when they're ready to buy or sell real estate, they're like, holy smokes, the people at the Robinson Group did such a great job that I'm not going anywhere else. Don't get me wrong. We still have people that we have slipped through the cracks. We're not perfect, but I can assure you the way in which you carry yourself and the way in which you treat people is going to be indicative to the people that call you back later on. Right. And that's the thing in this business. I think a lot of people are just transactional, not relationship based. And that's why I think getting into, and I'm not saying go out and buy leads, but naturally, when you meet people that you've never met before and you do a good job, what happens? You
They
create a
start
whole
talking
nother
to you.
spider web. We call it the spider web effect, right? And I want to build as many webs as possible. I want to be able to create different relationships with different groups of people. So that way, when everybody's out there talking to their friends, all they're hearing about is the Robinson Group, right? And we've done a great job in our local market as far as creating some omnipresence. And we're not always perfect, but I can tell you this right now that we are getting many calls from past clients because of the good service that we're providing. And not only after they close, but we're continuing to reach out to them to make sure that things are going the way that they want. And if they need any assistance, that we're here to help, right? And that's why using a CRM and making sure you utilize the tools that are readily available in our industry to help you look sharper and better to these people, right? So
It's true. It's you have to market at some point, though. I mean, you're marketing to your own people at that point, either through phone calls or retargeting or doing events for them. You're still doing some form of marketing, because even I've seen agents do a good job, but not keep in touch. That's where it really hinges on and where you can capitalize on that.
100%. And don't get me wrong, I will tell you this early on in my real estate career, the biggest regret that I have as far as looking back at what affected my business was not using a CRM appropriately for the first 5.5 years.
Yeah,
If I look back, I mean, it's millions of dollars that I lost as far as total sales, and it's one of those things that I can't blame anybody other than myself, right? The tools or programs are right in front of me. I just decided not to use them at that time. And now knowing that, I tell people, like I said, my biggest regret was not embracing the CRM sooner, right? And you making sure that everything that you do is inside something that you can track. Let's ask this question: Do the three of us agree that this business is predictable?
yeah, it's tracking.
I think that a lot of people don't think it's predictable. Right. Don't get me wrong. We can't sense that there's going to be a potential issue globally or whatever the case may be. But I can tell you this right now, that even when times change in the political climate, whether there's an issue, with inflation or whatever the case may be, all you have to do is change your activities, right? You might have to make double the amount of calls, but everything is predictable. Everything in this business, if it's tracked, can be measured. And I think that people need to realize that, hey, you know what? If you want to sell 50 houses this year, you can re-engineer what 50 houses look like. You know how many dials, you know how many texts you need to have, you know how many appointments need to be set, you know how many appointments need to be met. One factor that I tell people a lot is, you should focus on how many people do you meet call you back. I think that's really a true reference to the success and the impact that you're making on somebody. If you consistently go out and meet people and then never hear from them again, that's probably a time in which you could sit back and reflect on maybe the fact that your follow-up is not as necessarily as great as you thought it was, right? So a lot of these things, these numbers that we're getting, when we truly take it in and we start to realize and analyze the data, we can create a more predictable path in this business. And I want you guys to be aware of that this business is predictable, but it's up to you guys to be able to measure those things so that way you can actually get a true accurate picture of what you need to do in your business to accomplish the goals and the commitments that you're seeking. I do truly think that goal is a weak word. I think commitments make up goals. I don't think goals is a bad idea, but I do think that in this business, if you embrace the technology that's readily available, you'll be unstoppable, right? You'll know exactly what you need to do to be able to accomplish what you're seeking.
I love that. So Kyle, I know we want to talk a little bit about the investing side of real estate because you've done such an amazing job at it. What is your recommendation for real estate agents at least? How should they start investing in real estate, and what should be their exit strategy? I know you mentioned that, there should be a way of, so this way they're not selling real estate, after 30 years in a business or so. And so like what would be the blueprint for a real estate agent that wants to do that?
Yeah, let me just give you a little short story about what happened with me, right? So I think one of the biggest flaws, personally, in my opinion, is the lack of real estate agents that actually invest into real estate. And it's kind of mind-boggling, to be honest with you. And I understand. Once again, getting back to that same broker that told me that I wasn't going to be able to do 25 million, they also told me that flipping houses was a distraction. And that it was actually hinder my retail real estate business. Don't get me wrong, and I don't necessarily disagree that it could be a distraction, but going as far as to saying that it could hinder or affect what I currently had going on, that's debatable, right? Because it's once again based off the habits that somebody has. They can still be a successful real estate agent and still sell a lot of real estate. But needless to say, my situation was interesting. So I actually dealt with a lot of real estate investors early on in my career and helped them build their own portfolios. And you know what? To be honest, like isn't it amazing on how you help other real estate investors build their portfolios and their flips, but yet people aren't even thinking about doing it themselves? They're like, oh yeah, I'm going to get the commission check from
Makes
it.
sense.
It's mind-boggling. But
Crazy.
I mean, I don't know what the actual number is, but I want to say less than 5% of real estate agents actually invest into real estate. Outside of it, which is completely mind-boggling to me. Completely mind-boggling. Don't get me wrong. I get some investors don't want to work with real estate agents that also invest themselves as they look at us competing. But the real estate investors that I have, they actually want me to be a real estate investor because that actually helps them better analyze their situations and they don't have a fear of loss, nor do I. Right. But getting back to it, in 2017, we did our first real estate investment flip. What happened was I had one of my investors that went to a seminar and got hooked up with a hard money lender and didn't realize how much money and junk fees the hard money lender was actually charging them. Right. So when it got down to closing, he came to me crying and he said, Kyle, I don't know what's going on. They want me to bring, $40,000 to closing. It was supposed to be $10,000. I don't have the money. And basically at that point, I was like, okay, well, looks like we were probably gonna have to get hold of the listing agent and cancel the contract. Well, then at that point, I had a conversation with my wife and, and say, hey, you know what? We've been helping other real estate investors do it. I think this is our time to potentially look at this and get into it. So rather than using the hard money lender, we paid cash for the property, funded the rehab. We split the first deal 50-50. At that point, I was like, wow. I was able to make a pretty decent commission check from this real estate investment. And I didn't really have to do a whole lot. Really, I was the money guy. He was the one that did all the labor. So in that situation, it worked out. Well, I'm one of those guys that I believe early on, if I want to do something, I'm going to get a guide. So at that point, I actually partnered up with another guy at my real estate brokerage who eventually joined my real estate team. And we started flipping houses together. And then at that point, we realized that, hey, we have some knowledge of this. Obviously, we've helped other people. But then I remember one day at an open house, I discovered 7-figure flipping and a guy named Justin Williams, which is a real estate mastermind for flipping and rentals and wholesaling. So I watched this video for 12 hours that day. And then all of a sudden I was like, man, it's like $2,500, and I was like, we're going to sign up. I got my wife and my business partner there. And then we're going to the pitch and then it was $25. And I remember looking at them and I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I thought it was $2,500, guys. Like, yeah, that wasn't 2,500. It's 10 times more than that. And I'm like, well, I got to do it. And we paid the 25 grand. And I'm going to tell you what, it was the best 25 grand I ever spent. And changed the whole trajectory of my life. And I guess the whole point of this is what it allowed me to do is realize that life was much bigger than what I thought. It was much bigger than what we had done in our local real estate market. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of times I bet there will be people who listen to this and they're going to be like, man, you know what? It's always been the same way. So it can't ever change, right? Like a small town, like in my local area, we're 300,000 people. A good buddy of mine, Rich, also another real estate agent. Nobody ever thought that anybody could break over 150 transactions a year. Yet we did it both at the same time. Nobody ever thought we would be able to break 400 transactions, yet we both did it at the same time, right? So I think a lot of times people put limits on what they can do, but it's about getting out of the box. And Rich did the same thing. Rich joined a mastermind group in which we both realized that life could be much bigger than what we thought and what other people had done in our local market. So that was one of those things that getting involved with seven-figure flipping changed the whole trajectory of how I ran my real estate team and how I thought about real estate investing. And then from there on, real estate investing was one of those things that we were very passionate about. On average, we would do at least 10 flips a year, and if you're looking at our average profit margins in our area, about $38,000 a deal. So an extra, 350 to 400 grand on the low end, somewhere's upwards of, pretty decent money on some of the years going forward. We're much more focused on bigger dollar flips now. But that was really the trajectory. As an investor, had a deal falling apart, we jumped in, and then I wanted to learn more about it. And then when I got outside of our local market and started talking to people that were doing 100 flips a year, 400 flips a year, 1,000 flips a year, right? And then I was like, holy smokes, this is much bigger than what I thought it could be, right? And don't get me wrong, I didn't take the pedal off the retail real estate machine because I do believe that was a core component of what's allowed us to be successful. But I wasn't naive to the fact that retail real estate or investing in real estate was going to be able to create the financial liquidity that I needed to invest in other things, right? So we are investing in other businesses outside of the real estate industry, things in which have changed the whole trajectory of my entire life, right? But it was with that money that I was able to invest into those things and now be able to set my family up for long-term success and my grandchildren up for long-term success, right? And that's what this is all about.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I heard you say here is that number one is that you took a lot of money invested in yourself and coaching and seminars, which helped you obviously maybe get a little bit more confident, maybe on getting those deals in or doing the first investment or the second investment, which a lot of people won't do, right? Like they're so worried about, thinking that it's too expensive to invest in themselves, where really, like I've heard this, I forgot who said it, but skills is really one of the things that nobody can take away from you. If you lost everything, tomorrow, your skills are still going to stay with you for a long time. Nobody can ever take this away from you, no matter, it's not the government, nobody, right? So investing in skills is really important because you can always gain whatever you lost back if you ever did lose it. And then you took risks, right? You invested a lot of money into flips, and where a lot of people are worried about, like, oh, what if this flip doesn't work? Or what if I don't make any money from it? Which you have to take risk to make money, right? And like, what would you tell somebody that is maybe afraid of getting their first flip or getting into their first investment?
Yeah. So what I would tell them is to go find somebody that's already currently doing it. It's amazing on how many people will partner with other people in this business to get them started, right? And I think a lot of times people are concerned that other people are going to say, no, I'm not going to help you, man. I already do that. Why would I need you? Well, let me tell you this. One thing that we do with our retail real estate team is we allow them to run cash offer appointments. I hope that every real estate agent is running a cash offer program, but we do. We run TV commercials. We've ran billboards. We've done a lot of different things to get that marketing out there. So naturally, people in our market know that we invest, and then they bring us opportunities. But what I do is I have my agents go out on these cash offer appointments. And if it's something that's viable and they're willing to commit to being able to go through the process, being able to work with project managers and do the things necessary to help oversee the project, we will actually look at partnering with those people. So what my recommendation would be is that if you are looking to get into this, I think the best thing you could do is go find a potential flip opportunity and then bring it to a local investor in your market and ask them about doing a joint venture. I'm going to tell you that joint ventures typically are what I see a lot of people do to start to get into it. I would highly encourage that you start with somebody that's already been in the trenches, because I will tell you, and I'm sure you guys can both agree, that there are many times in which we've talked to people about flipping houses. They went in and poorly executed and then never flipped another house afterwards. Actually, to be honest with you, that is the majority of people that get into real estate investing. They realize that it's actually more challenging to be able to find good deals, to be able to source good contractors, to get things done in a timely manner, and to actually dispo it for the price that they actually originally thought they were going to get, right? So there are 4 different components, right? It's all about the acquisition, the construction side, timelines, and making sure that you can disposition or sell the property for what you think you're going to get out of it, right? So, but partner with somebody. And you know what? I'm going to throw a shameless plug out there. If you need money and you want to partner, I'll partner with you wherever you are, right? Doesn't matter if it's in Iowa or Illinois. At the end of the day, it's all numbers. Everything is numbers. I'll just be honest with you. I have no emotions attached to any investment that I have. It's all strictly business and all dollars and cents.
Amazing.
Awesome. And this is something I guess is very debatable, right? Like what do you recommend, like flips or buy and holds?
Yeah, so this is the thing that I would look at, right? So I would look at what is the cash reserves of somebody, right? Let's just face it, most people don't have a whole lot of money in reserves. So what our philosophy was to begin with, obviously, don't get me wrong, my parents have done well, but none of the success that we've had has been money that they've been given to me, right? But what my focus was fix and flip, take that money and invest it into a rental property. Fix and flip, invest in a rental property. Why? Because it allows me to continue to keep filling up my treasure trove or my cash reserves, so that way I can continue to focus. I think if you focus on buying rental property to begin with and you don't have a bunch of liquidity, you can run into a position where you're going to end up stopping and buying. I get a lot of people that tell me though all the time, they're like, I want to buy 10 rentals over the next 5 years. And I'm like, well, why don't you just buy 10 rentals this year? Right. And they're like, well, what do you mean? And a lot of times the reason they're restricted to being able to buy 10 rentals in 1 year is because a lack of liquidity. So I think that the perfect recipe is to fix and flip and then take that money and then put it into rental property. Right. And I will tell you that people go into cycles, right? So we were single family renters to begin with. Now we own multifamily. Now we're actually transitioning out of multifamily, getting into more cold storage and storage units, right? Things in which we're not necessarily getting calls to come over and fix clogged toilets and stuff like that. So the way in which they invest is going to be different and the story is going to be different. But fix and flips really create the liquidity necessary so that way you can expand your rental portfolio very quickly. I'm going to tell you this, and I wish I would have embraced this sooner. Do you know what the phrase OPM is?
No.
Other people's money. Other
Yeah.
people's money. And I don't get me wrong, people are like, oh, Kyle's talking about using other people's money. He must not have any money, right? That's not true. At the end of the day, when we first started investing in real estate, we used all of our own cash. And we were, once again, like I told you, that first deal I took down with all cash and funded the rehab cash. To be honest with you, that's not necessarily the best way to go about things, especially with the fact when you can borrow money. Obviously right now it's a little bit different, but let's just say even on a fix and flip loan, you're looking at 6.5% to 7% interest only, maybe a little bit less depending on what the situation is. If I can take that money and keep my money in my pocket, that puts me in a position of power. When I can take other people's money and use it and then pay them a good return that's similar or maybe slightly higher than what the bank return is, it allows me to be able to keep my liquidity and go out and tackle more deals, right? So a lot of the people that I know that are doing this business at a high level are using other people's money to help leverage their situation and to be able to create more opportunities. So recently, over the last, I guess, 2.5 to 3 years, we have been more open to other people's money. And as far as commitments, we have millions of dollars worth of commitments in which we could take down projects and just reach out to people and let them know the address, what the deal specifics are, and get them to fund the deal. Most of the stuff we do, though, is through community banks. I do think community banks is probably where I would start, especially if you have good credit and good financial position, as typically there's no junk fees associated with it and they're interest only deals. A lot of them we've actually been able to keep on interest only maybe for a year or two, especially if we're going to keep it into a long-term hold and potentially gear up more cash flow. So there's a bunch of different ways in which you can push levers to help with a particular situation. But I think that a lot of people restrict themselves to what they think they can do based off of what they currently have, but that's not true. You can go out there and talk to other people about what you want to accomplish and help them by investing their money into your deals, being able to pay them a fair interest rate and be able to make sure your deals are out of it. Your money's out of the deal. And that's really what's going to put you in the position of power. I had a buddy of mine, Don Costa, who had some issues in '08. And if you look back on it, if he would have had the money in his pocket and being able to use other people, he would have been able to pivot out of that market change much differently than he had happened. So and I'm just telling you right now, another plug for 7-figure flipping. Bill Allen's actually got a 500K challenge out there. Basically, it's a social media challenge in which people, you go out there, talk to people about what you're currently doing, what you want to accomplish, and tell them how you can help them along the way as well. And I've done it multiple times. Actually, the last time I did it, we raised $2.3 million.
Wow.
And commit, right? Not necessarily money coming to me, but people saying, hey, I've got $1 million. If you got a deal come up, make sure you send it to me, right? And then we stack people, right? So we call them private money lenders. We stack people. I've got private money lenders from 6% up to 12%, just depending on what the situation. Obviously, the 12% guy gets the call last, right? So it's one of those things that every situation's different, but I want to make sure that I have access to money because it allows me to be able to create opportunity. And whenever I have things, we can tackle and accomplish things very quickly.
So you're saying basically you've used social media to leverage that and find the investors in your just direct pool of people that you're networked with already.
Yeah. Just as a disclaimer, because I'm sure there's going to be somebody out there that listens to this, you need to be very careful if you're soliciting money on social media on how you talk about it, right? Because there are certain restrictions as far as how you can solicit money from people. So just make sure you're understanding of that. And that's why I recommend checking out the 500K challenge, because Bill actually talks about the legalities of the things that you should not be saying on social media, right? Obviously, there's different, or if you're starting a fund, a 506B versus C, there's a lot of different things that you should be conscientious about if you are trying to solicit money from people. So just a little disclaimer, just to make sure. Well, haters are out there like, oh, Kyle said that you can just go out there and say, I need money. That's not what I said. What I'm saying is you can tell people about what you're doing and you can have a conversation about how you can help them, right? They just need to understand that. So
Love that. Well, thanks, Kyle. This has been an amazing podcast. How can the listeners find out more about you, and if they wanted to reach out to you for referrals or maybe getting into a partnership or a joint venture with you on some investments?
Yeah, definitely look me up on Facebook. Shoot me a private message. I'm sure my contact information is out on the internet everywhere if you want to look for it. But needless to say, Facebook, Instagram, or direct message me. That's probably about the easiest way. But I highly encourage that you guys really start to take a deep dive into this and become real estate investors. Especially if you're a real estate agent, you should be investing into real estate. And I promise you that when you start investing into real estate, you're going to realize that the returns, as long as they're educated and thought out, are going to be much better use of your time, right? And don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean you stop selling real estate. You use this in tandem together so that way you can create the financial freedom you're seeking, and you're going to potentially get there a lot quicker this way.
That's great. That's gold.
Thank you again, Kyle. And we're going to put your links in podcast description. Thank you guys for listening. If you like this content, please subscribe, share, and comment. Share it with a friend who can get value from this. And also remember, we have a Facebook group that we'll also put the link on. We always posting content there. Yeah, I look forward to having a new guest next week. Thanks for listening again.
Awesome, guys.
Thanks,
You guys have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.